Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Perry with Premier Guitar here in Nashville, Tennessee, at Marathon Music Works, with my good friend Tim.
What's
from
up?
Underoath.
Yeah.
And Diego, Tech of the Century.
How you doing?
The nerd of this operation.
World's tech.
Yeah, right on. So, Tim would like everyone to know that he has a couple of guitars.
I
But
have
two. It's just a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys
Keep it simple.
You guys have scaled it down.
Don't overcomplicate anything.
I like the Kiss
Yeah.
model. Well, let's start with whatever your number one is.
I guess my
What do you
number
want most of
one.
the night?
Honestly, it's pretty split. But this is SG Special. I've broken way too many nice SGs, and I used to like nice guitars, and then I realized that I don't need one.
Sure.
So we basically just buy these and then rip everything out.
Take all the pickups out.
Mod everything out to where it's just an on knob,
So it's just volume.
and then Seymour Duncan humbucker, and that's literally it.
Yeah.
And this stays in drop D for the whole set. So before we would have like a whole vault of C sharp, C, everything, and Diego basically programmed our fractals, which we'll get to in a minute, via our playback with Ableton, where we have pitch blocks. So if I needed to be in C, it's just a simple thing that he puts in, and then the blob hits, and now all of a sudden it's lower. And I just ride this for everything aside from drop A baritone stuff.
Love that. What's
Yeah.
up with this cool wooden pick guard there?
So
I don't
this
know.
guitar is really weird. We're not sure if it's honestly legit or not because we got off reverb off of just some cat. I tried to get as close to the other one that he had, which was a 1970, like the
Yeah, I remember
Special T with the two mini humbuckers.
Right.
And my friend over here just decided to murder it at the last show of our last tour, dropped it on its face, and it broke in half. So I picked up this to get as close as I could, but normally this comes with a one-ply parchment pickguard, and it came with this guy, which leads me to believe that it was either the guy tried to make one on his own or
Right.
something.
It's for sure handmade.
And there's like the nut is also has just a bunch of tool marks on it still. A lot of it just seems very kind of maybe like he made a kit guitar, but either way, it honestly plays better than the last one, so we're not really going to complain.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then we just dropped a
it's-
JB in the
It's
bridge.
bespoke, as we say in the
It is,
industry.
it's definitely bespoke. You could definitely call it that. No, here's a real litmus test on whether or not it's fake. Does it neck dive on you? Like if you were just have it strapped on, or does your pack help
I
weigh
don't
it down?
think so.
No, it doesn't really.
Because I've always had that problem with SGs.
No.
Oh, look at you go. Look at that.
I mean, I can dive it, but if
No.
I put it back, it doesn't.
it's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
most
yeah.
of them are
Yeah.
top heavy, so maybe this is just a big pile of shit. But I
It could be
still
just
use
one of
it.
those under the coconut tree
Yeah.
guitars, man.
Yeah, buy my signature bespoke broken SG model out next summer.
Fun stuff.
And then what else do we have?
Oh yeah, we're going. So you have a backup for that, obviously, right?
I do. Yeah, it's just a standard telly.
Okay.
Again, same thing. No input jack because I rip them out. So Diego just took out all this shit. Same Seymour Duncan, and then.
So did you
changed the
mod this
input.
for the input jack to be on the
Yeah,
front?
basically my standard process when I get a new guitar for them is just take everything apart, rip out all the controls, and move the jack on a telly to the tone knob
plate,
position.
yeah.
In the plate. And then I take pretty much just all the pickups out, wire it straight to that tone control or that volume control.
Yeah, just
We're
keep
done.
it as simple as
Fucking
possible.
all
Yeah,
gas, no
remove
brakes.
all-
We
yeah.
break everything, so the less moving parts we
Yeah.
have, the better, which is why
Yep.
we switched to Fractal and like no more unplugged wires on my special Skyverb that I bought on something for $1 trillion. It's just like, let it rip and let us get back to
Man,
business.
I love that idea. A lot of people in the comments are like, "Oh, it's not real amps. It's not real amps." But if you tour full time, you'll realize quickly how you want to eliminate any problems. I don't know if you remember, you once took out my band Il Patriot, and Ryan Rado, who has Tourette's syndrome, had a tick with a cup of water on stage our first day of tour and fried my whole board.
Yep.
It sucked so bad. So
Yeah.
like that whole tour, I was like having to borrow shit and like trying to make it work, and it was just a nightmare.
I mean, and that's it. And like, I think there's gear heads and then there's like
Get it done
music
dudes.
heads, and
Yeah.
I'm more like music, like as many moving parts as I can eliminate, so I don't have to realize that we're about to hit a clean part, but I happen to be headbanging over by Chris and I have to run back and do an A-B switch. Like,
Right.
tone is not important. Like energy and like things that kind of move the needle with a room to me is important. And then obviously we have people like Diego who are tone geeks, and so
Right.
when I can get someone to use something that's sufficient for my workflow but actually sounds amazing is
Right.
kind of the perfect marriage.
I love that idea because it's your job to come in here and riff. You got an incredible front of house team that's going to make it sound good.
Yeah.
You got Diego who's going to dial it in so it does sound good. So
Yeah, the only thing I do manually is the wah, just because I feel like that's actually a performed like feel. But as soon as, if something's going to click and I'm falling behind a drum riser or up front somewhere and all of a sudden we're in quarter note delays on clean, and then we're back to breakdown distortion wherever I am on stage. Like, it frees me up to do what I do, which is express myself the way I want to on stage without having to worry about the technical side.
Jazz
so
hands.
that's a win for me. Yeah, I just don't have to do anything for the most part.
Yeah, especially, I mean, if you're a fan of Underoath and you've seen these guys live, you know for sure that Tim just sits still. He doesn't move the whole the whole show.
Same thing.
This thing is so sick, and I've seen these come up a lot recently, and I guess they're kind of sought after now, right? Like,
they definitely are, yeah. In part thanks to Loathe, who's on our tour, because they kind of popularized this in that music video. And after that, it just exploded.
Yeah, man, they're nice. I like it a lot. There's been a couple of weird Squier guitars that have found some kind of like real mainstream lore. Yeah, like the Bass 6 and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Because Fender's not making it. But why baritone instead of just a lower tuning on another guitar?
I actually like it.
Does the difference in scale fuck you up live at all?
I actually like it because it's, again, I care about doing something else, and when all my frets are jammed together, I have to be way more precise. But with this, like, I could play all of our drop D stuff so much easier because I have this much placement rather than this much placement. So I actually like the long scale. I'm small and short, so I wear it high to make sure I can reach, and it looks a little quirky sometimes. Maybe.
I'm a fan too. I started out on Gibson scale guitars, and I remember the first time I kind of messed with Fenders, even not baritone Fenders. It was like, holy shit, this is so much easier.
Yeah, it's great. And same thing though. I mean, input jacks here. Fuck that. Take this out. Don't need that. And it's just.
I love how you just. Jack, nope, never mind. Is that just because of the angled cables that you
It just makes it easier instead of having to deal with, like, this poking out here and having to remember where I plug in the cable. It's kind of like a muscle memory thing for both of us. Like, if something comes unplugged, he doesn't have to be, oh yeah, this is the bullet style jack. It's always right in the same spot.
When strobes are going and you're trying to, like, panic mode, you just put it right there and you're done,
All right, so tell me about this pickup.
Just a standard Jazzmaster shape P90.
Did you have to, EQ anything specifically for this guitar? Because everybody knows jam pickups sound like shit.
Yeah.
It's a P90, so I guess it's still going to be a little noisier than a humbucker.
It is, but the gate that we have kind of is like a global gate that splits the difference between both styles of pickups, and we don't ever have any noise issues at all.
Was it stock?
Yeah. We haven't changed anything except for just.
We have another one that we just threw out.
Oh, yeah.
So if we would have known they'd be worth $2 trillion, we would have saved it. No. Yeah, it's literally stock. Like, a lot of people like chew through, like, did you hear what Duncan just dropped? Or I had this hand wound guy from the Midwest that's smoking everybody, and I'm just like, dude, it sounds so good already.
Right.
Like, gear infatuation is super cool because it's like a passion or a hobby, but it's not necessary for me to do my job.
Also,
so it's like, once I have what works,
it's relative.
I just want to keep it,
People get so precious about that shit, and it's relative. Not to mention the fact that, especially if you're running this all through XFX, the tone shaping possibilities are kind of limitless.
That's pretty much what we do. I mean, if we have a new pickup, then we'll just EQ match in here.
Sure.
And also, it's like, if he's using that for specific songs, we already have per song patches that we'll just dial in for that song anyways.
Right.
It's not like he's running just through the same amp on every song. It's like we have infinite amps in here.
Yeah, and you could set a bass marker tone and put a Stratocaster, a Squier, and like an acoustic is exaggerative, but you could put anything through it, and then all the scenes change, but the output is uniform and the tones are uniform.
Right.
If you have someone who's capable of actually understanding how it works and achieving that.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, let's be honest and slay me in the comments if you want, but Underoath's tone hasn't really, at least for heavy stuff, hasn't changed a ton. I mean, it's been an awesome distortion for every record. It's not like you guys have completely shifted gears and gone left field. And
I think there's a lot of people that talk about like, oh, this 5K knock in the bottom end, and I'm just like, dude, that's for someone else. Like,
the low
let me 5K. Just headbang and like let's have fun, you know. And not to degrade it, it's just not my skill set or even my passion. Like,
totally.
I hate buying guitars because that means I have to spend my money. Like, I don't collect guitars. I don't have like special guitars at home. I have a studio.
Do you have some nice guitars?
Yeah, well, in our studio, obviously, I have like an active 5-string bass, an active 4-string bass, a Les Paul, really nice Telly. So we have certain pieces, but we record all of our baritone stuff with this. Like, this is our studio rig and our tour rig, as long as I don't break it, So that's
you're doing pretty good so far. I love how not precious you are about this. Now, is your backup for the baritone the same thing?
Yeah, this one's name is Barry Manilow.
Oh, okay.
But Manilow. It's literally.
Now, what gauges and what gauges and string brand are you running?
So we're Ernie Ball family all the way, all day. Shout out to Tim Dove. And we use just their stock Baritone set. They just sent us a new longer formula, which is a little bit better.
Okay, yeah.
It's the same alloys though, but I believe, let me see if I can grab one pack here. I always forget the numbers. It's a, don't expose the set list for the show tonight. 13, 18, 30, 44, 56, 72.
So 13 up top. I mean, that's heavy, but for baritone, that's actually not.
Well, it's interesting too because, you know, on a longer scale like that, I believe there's a 28-inch scale. The 72 on the bottom, I mean, we're pulling like almost 30 pounds of tension. It almost feels like a bass 6.
Right.
But for his playing style and because he plays so hard and he's so active, I prefer to run it that way because we could easily get away with like a 56, and that already would be pulling like 22 pounds of tension. But because he's so active, it lets him hit hard and be dancing around and keep that fundamental note nice and stable without a lot of what's called pitch excursion. That wow, wow. It's just da, 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 nice and solid all the way through. So I like to run the heavier gauges on that.
Yeah, I totally get that. And then on the drop D guitars.
Yeah, we're doing beefy slinkies, which I believe are 11 through 54s.
Now, are you guys writing records now, both in drop D and with the baritone stuff, or is the drop D stuff kind of the older, you know, chasing tapey stuff, and the baritone stuff is newer?
Everything was drop D literally exclusively until disambiguation, except for one part on Lost in the Sound where we did like a drop A thing and we didn't know how to play it live because it was literally like, who cares? Let's just do something cool. We'll figure it out later until we had fractals. And then, baritones really came into play in disambiguation, and then Erase Me was kind of a blended mixed bag, and then the last record was pretty much all on baritone. And Let Go, the new song we just released, as well as the 2 other songs we're writing right now are all on baritone.
Sure.
And even like, you know, Hallelujah, for instance, like that was one of our singles from the last record. It's actually in D minor. Like you could play that in drop D except for one move. So it's not like everything's in A minor or drop A.
Right.
It's more just having that freedom. And Loathe has a really interesting tuning that they were telling me about that I played their guitars on, and I'm going to fuck around with that as well.
The open E?
Yeah, open E, A, E, A to start.
I've seen some guys doing that.
Really
sounds
cool.
Cool as shit.
Yeah, like everything I played was cool. I was like, oh, not I was just like, everything sounds cool. Yeah. So I just want to try it.
It's funny because traditionally hardcore bands, well, I guess you've kind of superseded that now, but traditionally hardcore bands are either in a drop tuning or a standard tuning, and it's really cool to see these younger kids, the next generation start fucking with alternate tunings, because if you are playing chaotic stuff or stuff that's a little out there are some tunings that can really make your life a whole fucking lot easier.
100%.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
Norma
save
Jean
your wrists, kids.
With, Norma Jean on Oh God, I believe it was, they tuned the E string down to where the bar chord, if you barred the, what's at the bottom? Is that the top 2 strings or the bottom?
Strings,
the smallest ones. The 2, if you barred it, actually made the dissonant chord.
Yeah.
So they would just go, like they could just do this, and I was like, how are you doing that? Oh, we just change the pitch, and change the tuning.
Because
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in your band, like Underoath or Norma Jean, like how often are you on the fucking bottom 2 strings?
Until you like play around with something that's cool, and all of a sudden now you want to go to it because it's a different trick rather than like, oh, there's just octaves.
Yeah, it takes some getting used to for sure.
And it's exciting to like mess around, because I find with my guitar playing, like I'm self-taught, so I don't have theory, and I find myself going to similar forms sometimes, and then I have to break out of that. And you put a different tuned guitar in there, but I try to go back to kind of what's natural, or even just play one of our songs and see how that modulates. Is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
Because then it's just like another creative tool that you can rely on.
I like that. I like that a lot. Now, I noticed that there's not locking tuners on his stuff, which I would almost assume that he would need, because this dude's moving so much.
Yeah, well, here's my thoughts on all that. Like, there's a lot of people saying, like, locking tuners for tuning stability. In my head, in my experience, because I come from the custom shop world, building Lutheran School before I got into this, way before, I've never had it benefit the tuning stability. It's just for string change speed. You just put it in, batten it down, tighten it up.
Gotcha.
The real trick to tuning stability is in how you stretch the strings, your gauge selection, and your setup.
Sure. Yeah.
And so that's really just the key of it. And if you have a player that can play in tune, he can play very in tune. Like if I ever hand it to him slightly out of tune, I can hear him correct it with his fingers.
Okay.
Knowing how to play really is like the key to all of it. How to pick. Some people are picking way too hard, which some people would agree that disagree that there's even such a thing, right? But some people pick way too hard and they monkey grip it and they're playing out of tune, and that'll pull it and it'll get stuck in the nut if you have burrs in the nut. Like just the maintenance and setup of the instrument and the player are the only thing. Tuners, I don't think really have too much to do with it, unless they're broken, have like a broken worm gear or something.
Or if they're really cheap.
Really cheap ones that
that can't take the stress.
The precision machining in the gears is off, and then they start to slip. But,
totally. Okay.
And I honestly like that. Like I like the punk element of like, man, like when you really dug in there for that last breakdown, it was like
out of tune.
It was floating in tune to where it widened it, but you could tell it's like, thank God this song's over. I love that.
Yeah, I kind of like that too. Yeah.
That's like punk as hell.
It is.
It's
really
just
is.
like old shit rather than like everyone's on Evertunes, everyone's on this and that. It's like,
yeah,
like be a rock band. As we are about to talk about how we use computers now, so the duality.
Punk rock is that, dude?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what everyone wants to hear, but that's my philosophy. Like, use computers to get you back to being more rock and roll than you were when you had to think about all the cool rock and roll pedals.
Well, it makes sense if you don't think about it.
Yeah,
right. If you're not thinking about it,
yeah,
it makes perfect
yeah.
sense.
But when I say it out loud, I sound like an idiot.
Well, dude, that's actually a perfect segue because the last time we hung out, you guys. Man, I learned so much from playing shows with you guys because you were like the first band that I'd ever played with that was like, nah, man, low stage volume. And I remember you guys could like fucking talk to each other on stage, and I'm like, what is this shit? I don't like in-ears. They fuck with me really hard. Like they make me super dizzy for some reason. I guess it's usually because I always pull one out so I can hear my cab.
Yeah.
Which is dumb on my part. I just never got used to it. But obviously, you guys are not playing real amps anymore. There's no more attenuators and stuff like that. So with the Axe Effects, I know that Diego has set all this up for you. Were you going for amps that you might have been playing live back in the day, or is this a whole other approach? Or
well, when we got our Fractals, I set all this up. So I programmed all of our playback. Obviously, I understand basics of MIDI because when we do projection and all that, I was running all of our playback. Diego took that over. So when I started, it was just, let me find something like a JCM 800 and a TS9 because that's what my old rig was. And then Diego and JJ, actually, our producer and front of house engineer who does all of our records with us and is on tour with us, like, we brought it in the studio and we got some bass tones, and then Diego would take one home and then program everything. So it's been a mixed bag of like team effort. And we just kind of base it off of something that feels as close to what we would want in the studio. And I don't even know what it is. It could be a tweed with like 7 rats in front and behind it. I have no idea. I'm just like, that's it. Like whatever that is, let's duplicate and then adjust to variances and pick up gain and tone, He could probably speak to it a lot more.
Yeah, so I mean, I think your heavy bass tone right now, let's actually, if we can pull that up here.
I don't have bass
tone.
tone.
Layout. No, your bass BASE, man.
Oh, he always says that.
Yeah, so it's a diesel VH4. It's the Dizzy V4 Silver 3. Yeah, well, because I think that's what you guys use when you track with the Apollo in the church studio.
Yeah.
I think that's like the most close emulation.
It's definitely one of my favorite high gain patches in the Axe Effects.
Yeah. Fucking awesome, man.
Yeah.
And we just got a quad Cortex.
How do you feel about it?
Great.
Yeah.
Like,
they're fucking awesome, dude.
I'm asking Diego if we can get some drawers, try it out.
Yeah. A lot of people.
He's mad because he just built this. I was like, but I want it. This is so cool.
Yeah.
We're going to use it in the studio, put it through its paces, but everything we've done so far is like, holy shit.
If they come out with a rack unit.
Dude, you got to realize modeling has come so far.
The neural stuff is
unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
And I feel like the disconnect for a lot of people is they're used to the way an amp feels, right?
Yep.
For me, and I was the same way. I was like not really into my Axe Effects until. Personally, I run mine with a power amp through an actual cab. It's the paper speakers, dude. Like, beyond that, when people are like, "Oh, I can tell," it's like, "Oh, can you?"
Can't tell.
No,
it's fucking 130 decibels in here. You
cannot
tell me that
Nobody
you can tell the
can
difference.
tell.
Like, okay.
Yeah, Periphery and Loath both use similar rigs, but they actually have like not dummy, but just power amps and cabs just to push air and feel.
Even if you have that on stage, you can still run cab sims and whatever you want to your house. It's fine.
And like we get around that because we juice our side fills. Like I'm like, dude, if you could put my guitar in the side fills and when I chug, I feel like a gut punch.
Yes, I want to feel it.
That's all I want. Yeah. And it helps front of house because we're not trying to like send signal and just murder the front row.
Right.
And now he's counterbalancing and wherever he walks, like shit's hitting me from all angles. We have the best and cleanest front of house experience, but then we feel everything crossing over from left to right side fills in unison, so it feels like there's amps everywhere.
It's kind of the best of both worlds because you have in-ears, so you're getting a super clean. You know,
I can hear everything. I
but
can
you can
protect
feel
my
it now with the
hearing.
side fills as well.
And sometimes I'll turn my in-ears even lower than I would need to, just so I could play off the room feel. Like I could hear Aaron through my in-ears, like as if I'm doing this, and then my guitar is through my side fill. I just need a little bit of click and make sure I'm aware of everyone else's transgressions and or successes.
Speaking of click, I'm guessing you guys have this scene changes program, right? So it's changing with the Ableton?
Yeah. So basically, we're running Ableton Live 11 Suite, and we're using this Max for Live plugin called Setlist by Strange Electronics, and it basically just controls all of these little locator flags up here. Each flag is a song, and if I pan through them, I'm gonna just kind of play one.
So are you starting the song?
Yeah, so I start at the top of the set. This is my little mini controller right here. It's a USB mini Go box, and that goes into our Play Audio 12, and then that feeds both computers the input signal, and then also both computers see it as an output interface. Each song has a click track. We have count-ins, we have the song names, so you hear a little robot voice like, you know, Viper, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what we call breathing into mentality.
Okay, gotcha.
Hallelujah, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you have the metronome, and they're all made with MIDI devices that have samples in them. It's a drum rack, and so I can literally just drop a bunch of MIDI clips, and that's all just a MIDI clip just looped. So we don't have to print click tracks or anything.
Love it.
And then we have timecode files for lighting and video control. We have percussion, drums, synths, extra guitar leads and candy tracks.
Is that how you're handling, you know, because there are tracks going on. There's like, beyond what Chris is playing, there's other guitar stuff happening. So you just have it already pre-recorded and set to
we were
trigger.
like anti-tracks for a long time. And then we kind of got to a spot where we have all of these keyboard tracks in a session, and so instead of just printing that session like a lot of bands do and just having a stemmed out master piece of the record playing, Chris goes through and basically mutes, let's say there's 30 synth tracks, some are clicks and pops, some are really important leads.
Sure.
He'll go ahead and mute everything that he's going to physically play live, and we play as much as we can, and then we kind of have a decision of like, can you even hear that in the mix? Does it help live? Does it hurt live?
Right.
You know, our second guitar is on a track, but I wanted it to feel like us live, so I just basically recorded to the session and just as much as I could, just all live.
Sure.
Like I want it to feel human, messed up, and then when I'm playing to it, all of a sudden it creates this thing where there's almost a North Star, but then I can deviate off and then come back to it because I'm deviating from myself, and I think that's really important.
Sure. And obviously that's a huge advantage with a guy like Chris, because obviously he's doing a lot of this live, but if you've seen Underoath, this dude is moving like a crackhead, so kind of making it a little more simple for him so he can fucking rock out. And
well, it's more the opposite. He tries to play as much as he possibly can.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
and then we have different swells, and like you just run out of banks when there's like this swell and that swell, so he does as much as he humanly can, and then we really just have like omission or not, and then we can just throw it in, but we're not running, 48 tracks and like a Macy's Day Parade.
Right,
but
it's not Britney Spears show.
Yeah, we want it to reinforce, not be a crutch. We want it to be an accessory, just like fractals and all that stuff. Totally. It's just like use what you can to get you to where you want to be, which is just headbanging and putting on some real shit, ideally.
I love that.
Yeah.
Bulletproof stuff that's cheap and accessible, and
it's not cheap.
Well, I mean, as far as guitars, like if one of those broke, it wouldn't enter gear or something like that. It's stuff that you can find.
This rig was multiple 5 figures, but it's part of it.
They're just widely available, man. Like that's kind of our philosophy is like, what can we build that's going to be the best for the price and then also easily replaceable should we end up in a spot where anything in this rack I can just find on Reverb. Like I bought some of these fractals on Reverb right before this tour, put this together in my house and then brought it out. Like I can get a standard telly anywhere. Like we're not bringing out a $5,000 custom European Strat that like
with a special whammy bar that needs a special Allen key to adjust.
It's proprietary Floyds that we can't find anywhere. It's like I can even Speed's nice little special baritone over there. If I really needed to, I could just go get like a Galactro baritone, a guitar center, and it'll work.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I like that. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the show tonight.
Dude, thank you.
So good to see you again.
Likewise, great to
Been a
see you
long
guys.
time, Diego.
Thanks, appreciate you.
This guy's worth his weight in gold. He knows what he's talking about with this shit, and I really appreciate it.
I agree.
Thank you guys so much for watching the Rig Rundown. Stay tuned for more Rig Rundowns, video lessons. Don't forget to check out the drum rundown. Tell your drummer. Shit's really fun. See ya.
Cheers.